I saw you and Sean had an interaction in the gym.
Understand, you're better than everybody. So just don't hurt people.
He didn't like when I said I tap him out, you know.
Did you tap him out?
Yeah, many times, bro. So, ask his coach.
What did you get him with?
Chokes, different things.
Chimaev fled Chechnya with his family because, you know, an oppressive warlord dictator that killed people indiscriminately. No hate on him. It's your country. Goes back. He goes back to Chechnya. You know, he goes back to Chechnya because somebody wants to buy him a G-Wagon. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll be that whore. I'll do it. I'll bend the knee for you, man. I like G-Wagons. And then what happens? The leash gets way too tight. The leash gets way too tight. And you know what? I think the U.S. government kind of recommends, looks at him like a terrorist now. Why? Because
from the outset, Sean Strickland zeroes in on Khamzat Chimaev's persona, not merely his combat prowess, but his entire history and integrity, portraying him with the disdain reserved for a terrorist. Strickland begins by acknowledging Chimaev's flight from a repressive Chechen administration, a narrative that could easily garner public empathy. Yet he swiftly shifts focus, asserting that Chimaev later willingly re-engaged with the very tyrannical leader he previously escaped, purportedly for the sake of lavish possessions such as a G-Wagon. This accusation immediately casts a shadow over Chimaev's character, undermining his loyalty and setting the stage for Strickland's persistent, scathing critiques that form the bedrock of his vendetta.
Feud. It's a foundational claim that fuels Strickland's entire narrative against Boers.
he has a Bitcoin scam, and he scams all his fans. And let me tell you guys something. I had the same Bitcoin scam offered to me. It was like 200,000, and I was like, no, fuck you, dude. I'm not going to scam my fans. I don't need money that bad. But that's what Chimaev did. So, yeah, Chimaev, you can fight. You can fight. You know, you got a beard. But let history record it as, you, sir, are a whore. You fled a country, you went back, and you got buddy-buddy with a dictator, and you fled again. Doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are.
Strickland's verbal assault on Chimaev's reputation extends beyond political connections, delving sharply into financial impropriety with a startling accusation of a Bitcoin scam. Strickland, drawing on his own history, states he declined a similar scheme, emphasizing his refusal to exploit his followers. Through this stark comparison of his alleged ethical stance against Chimaev's supposed misconduct, Strickland aims to thoroughly dismantle Chimaev's credibility in public opinion. He concludes this section by powerfully asserting that Chimaev's formidable fighting skills are irrelevant, given a history that allegedly includes deserting his homeland, aligning with an autocrat, escaping once more, and subsequently defrauding his supporters. This represents a merciless, multifaceted onslaught intended to erode Chimaev standing beyond the octagon.
Outside the cage.
No, I mean, I've taken him down, I've held him down, I've choked him, I've punched him. I mean, I've done all those things, so I don't see anything, you know, something special about him. Basically, he's a fighter's fighter. He's a good fighter. You know, if you look at him, he's like a, you know, an American cowboy, like from the movies. That's the kind of guy he is. But, you know, we've done our work in the gym together, and if they offer him to me, if I can fight him for the belt, that's what I'll do. You know, I make the money, get the belt. I have nothing against him. I think that if you compare us...
The anticipation peaks as we address the long-awaited sparring accounts between these two fighters. Sean Strickland has been vocal about their gym encounters, consistently proclaiming his superiority over Chimaev. However, Chimaev delivers a stunning rebuttal, directly challenging Strickland's narrative with a shocking counterclaim. I've brought him to the mat. I've maintained control. I've secured a choke. This powerful declaration completely subverts Strickland's version of events. Not only does Chimaev dismiss the notion of Strickland's supposed exceptionalism, but he asserts total command during their training sessions, specifically claiming he rendered Strickland unconscious. He further disparages Strickland by labeling him an American cowboy from the movies, insinuating that Strickland's bravado outweighs his actual gym performance, despite his proclaimed toughness. This direct confrontation ignites the true rivalry.
His toughness. This is where the real drama unfolds.
Actually, I was thinking about if Easy not knock him out, he gonna win. But it's happened. He couldn't knock him out first round. I was thinking if the guy just pressure him, Easy gonna get tired. Because all these guys, Easy fought, they play easy game. So Easy good on his game, you know, and just doing technique. Don't need to care about just like Sean Strickland went in, like me, you know.
Gaining insight into Khamzat Chimaev's views on Sean Strickland's surprising victory against Israel Adesanya proves quite revealing. Despite quickly downplaying Strickland's overall danger, Chimaev concedes the effectiveness of Strickland's tactical approach against Adesanya. He observes that Izzy's prior adversaries often afforded him too much latitude, enabling him to control the fight's rhythm with his technical prowess. Chimaev, nevertheless, highlights Strickland's unyielding aggression, reminiscent of his own forceful style, which ultimately exhausted Adesanya. This commentary uncovers a nuanced admiration for Strickland's strategic intellect and resilience, even as Chimaev maintains his conviction of superior skill. It exemplifies a fighter's keen assessment, recognizing successful strategies while preserving a sense of personal supremacy over Strickland.
This man fled his country. He went to Sweden. He had a great life. Australia welcomes a lot of immigrants, and I respect you, but the immigrants in Australia assimilate and become Australian, and goddamn, I respect you all for that. But this man goes back to Chechnya, off a dictator, him off, lets his son beat him up.
Sean Strickland continues his relentless assault, reinforcing his narrative regarding Chimaev's supposed moral failings. He champions the integrity of immigrants who successfully integrate into their new nations, starkly contrasting this ideal with his allegations against Chimaev. Strickland repeatedly asserts that Chimaev abandoned his native land, established a prosperous existence in Sweden, only to return to Chechnya and kowtow to a despotic ruler. He even claims that Chimaev permitted the dictator's son to physically assault him, injecting an element of profound disgrace into Strickland's portrayal and suggesting a surrender of personal honor for political expediency. This extends far beyond mere athletic competition, representing a profound indictment of Chimaev's ethical core and allegiance as perceived by Strickland.
Moral compass and loyalty in Strickland's eyes.
Every fight, this guy gets hurt. Mysterious injuries. I break my hand, my ovaries hurt. Like, I did this, I did that. Like, dude, you've never produced an x-ray, you've never produced an MRI. Like, but every fight, dude, you got to take a year off because you're injured. Like, are you that big of a bitch? So I don't know, man. I think it'll just be curious to see his trajectory and actually how many times he fights, you know. But like, when you're him, do you have to fight? When you're off Cordero and you're getting gifted G-Wagons and, like, I mean, how much money do you think that guy gets from the Chechnyan warlord, right? He probably gets a ton. So it's like, for him, it's not necessarily about fighting. It's about having a belt for as long as possible. And I think that's why you have a guy who just...
Strickland then redirects his criticism toward Chimaev's unusual career trajectory, focusing intently on his recurrent, unexplained injuries. He mockingly challenges Chimaev's resilience, insisting on viewing X-rays and MRIs and brazenly speculating if Chimaev is merely a coward. This commentary extends beyond just physical ailments, probing into the supposed reasons for Chimaev's prolonged absences. Strickland cynically proposes that Chimaev, having received extravagant presents such as G-Wagons from the Chechen warlord, no longer possesses a primary drive for combat. Instead, he contends that Chimaev's strategy involves resting on his laurels and maintaining a championship title for as long as feasible by evading serious competition, thereby reinforcing the perception of Chimaev as uncommitted or undeserving.
Or less committed.
They promised me, like I said before, Gilbert Burns, if you win with this guy against this guy, I'm gonna fight for the title. And since then, 2 years ago, you know, I fight again as well, but didn't get the title. So I don't know what's going on. So I'm not after that get just title. I'm going after all heads in the UFC, you know. Yeah, smash somebody, make money, be happy, man. If I finish everyone, stop everyone, they has to give me all belts, you know, so.
This section offers insight into Khamzat Chimaev's increasing dissatisfaction with the UFC's championship landscape. He details a commitment from the promotion for a title opportunity following his brutal clash with Gilbert Burns, a pledge he believes was unfulfilled. This underscores a persistent issue for Chimaev. Despite consistently stellar showings, he has not received the expedited path to a championship that many anticipated. He vocalizes a strong ambition to decisively defeat every opponent and complete all fights, thereby compelling the organization to grant him the belt. This declaration emphasizes his fierce drive and unwavering confidence in his own superiority, while also suggesting a rising frustration with the UFC's internal politics, a common feeling among contenders striving for ultimate glory.
Relate to when chasing championship glory.
When I walk into a gym, do you think that I go find the little weakest man? I say, let's spar. I say, no, I go find the biggest, baddest motherfucker. I'm like, hey, I want to spar you. Every time Chimaev would walk in the gym, he would pick the smallest, lowest level pro and say, but oh, he looks like my opponent. You're beating the out of this. And this is a true story. You guys could back me up, my team. he would pick the smallest guys. Chimaev's a fucking bully. And if you notice what he does in the division, he just runs and fucking hides. Oh, now I want to go to 205 and fight fucking Yuri, who's not even the champ, dude. You just run and fucking hide.
Sean Strickland, perpetually the instigator, unleashes a fresh, vitriolic assault on Chimaev's integrity, branding him a coward. Strickland shares a typical gym anecdote, wherein he actively seeks out the most formidable sparring partners, contrasting it with Chimaev's alleged habit of consistently selecting the weakest, least experienced professionals. Strickland interprets this as a pervasive pattern, extending from the training room into Chimaev's professional trajectory, asserting that Chimaev evades genuine tests, even citing his short-lived venture into the light heavyweight class as evidence. This portrayal paints Chimaev as an individual who shrinks from authentic competition, a stark departure from the aggressive wolf image he cultivates.
Persona he projects.
Did you see Khamzat Chimaev was on a podcast earlier this week, the Jackson podcast, and he was asked about this legendary sparring session you guys had. He said he tapped you out. That's why you hate him.
Bro, I made him quit training. Witnesses in the audience. Where's Eric at? I made him quit. No, dude. We're doing positional grappling, and he positional grappling. All right, start on my back, and I was like first round. I let him choke me because it's like no one gives a. Let me tell you about this little bitch.
This portion offers a direct and incendiary refutation to Chimaev's earlier assertion of having choked Strickland unconscious. Strickland swiftly challenges Chimaev, declaring, "I forced him to abandon training." He then clarifies the alleged tap during positional grappling, conceding that he permitted the choke, but characterizing it as an informal exchange rather than a legitimate submission triumph. Strickland's intense comeback perfectly embodies his style, directly confronting the circulating story and presenting his own account. He doesn't simply reject the tap. He reverses the narrative, implying that Chimaev was the one who ultimately faltered. This heated exchange intensifies their animosity, guaranteeing that spectators will continue to dispute who truly prevailed in those notorious gym encounters.
Infamous gym sessions.
But this man goes back to Chechnya. Off a dictator. Him off. Lets his son beat him up. And the leash got too tight. Too many G-Wagons. He was collected on. And when it came down to go a little deeper and a little more, this little ran to somewhere in the Middle East. And then he goes and sells a Bitcoin scam. Chimaev can fight, but sir, you are not a man. The world knows you as not a man. You will never be a
Strickland's character assassination of Chimaev reaches its zenith with a barrage of targeted and intensely personal affronts. He condemns Chimaev for forsaking his established life in Sweden and Australia to align with a despot, only to retreat once more when circumstances became too restrictive. He intertwines this with the Bitcoin fraud accusation, unifying all his previous charges into one definitive and damning condemnation. The ultimate point of his argument rests on his persistent declaration: Chimaev may possess fighting skill, but he lacks true manhood. Strickland proclaims that the global community recognizes Chimaev as not a man, asserting that he will never attain such status, referring to him as a little Chechenian. This constitutes a profound assault on Chimaev's integrity and virility, a deliberate insult intended to inflict greater damage than any defeat inside the cage.
Designed to cut deeper than any loss in the octagon.
Oh, much is good for me, man. It makes money.
Yeah, life's weird, man. So when you're talking about Chimaev going to the White House, he's best friends with like a warlord dictator that murders people. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this administration puts a terrorist on the White House card. I guess the perfect person to fight him would be me, right? The last real American in the UFC.
The fight people always thought was going to happen was you and Israel Adesanya for the title, but now Sean Strickland's the champion. What did you think of Strickland's win over Adesanya?
Sean Strickland wraps up his verbal onslaught with an incendiary declaration, drawing connections between Khamzat Chimaev and autocratic warlords, even insinuating that a figure akin to a terrorist could be received at the White House by the current administration. This represents Strickland at his most provocative, weaponizing political discourse to intensify the vilification of Chimaev. Subsequently, in his characteristic style, Strickland portrays himself as the ultimate American within the UFC, suggesting he alone is worthy to face Chimaev and embody authentic national principles. This self-serving proclamation transforms any prospective bout with Chimaev into a confrontation of conflicting beliefs and cultural allegiances, transcending a mere athletic contest and imbuing their rivalry with profound importance and fascination.